Hello everyone, welcome to my civil liberties project. It's by me, Melissa Serralde, so I hope I can inform you guys as much as possible on this topic. So, to introduce you guys and get familiar with my topic, in this project I will be introducing and informing students of equality and other groups, gender, gay, and lesbian rights, other minorities. Okay, let's get started. So, constitutional provisions, what are they? I'm sure most of you already know what this means, but just to refresh, constitutional provisions are permitted regulations that are associated and a part of a constitution. So, constitutional provisions about gender, LGBT rights, and other minorities are what's going on right now. As of now, the U.S. Constitution is insulating LGBTQ rights between the Due Process Clause and the Equal Protection Clause. According to a Supreme Court decision, both gender and sexual orientation are covered by sex discrimination statutes. I don't know how to say that word, but federal laws. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits discrimination based on sex, which includes sexual orientation and gender identity. Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity by most landlords. Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 prohibits discrimination based on sex by public schools. Some of the state laws are: California allows residents to be identified by a gender marker other than F or M on their driver's license, birth certificate, and death certificate. Supreme Court rulings. In Bostock versus Clayton County, the Supreme Court ruled that it is illegal to discriminate against individuals based on their sexual orientation or gender identity. Some of the Supreme Court decisions are Obergefell versus Hodges, 2015. The court ruled that same-sex couples have the right to marry, which extended legal marriage recognition to same-sex couples nationwide. The court found that state bans on same-sex marriage violated the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause. Bostock versus Clayton County, 2020. The court ruled that anti-LGBTQ discrimination in the workplace violates federal law. The court found that the federal anti-discrimination law that bans quote-unquote sex discrimination in the workplace also forbids employers from discriminating on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity. Boy Scouts of America versus Dale, 2000, the court ruled that forcing the Boy Scouts of America to accept James Dale back would violate their First Amendment right to freedom of association. One Inc. versus Olson, the court ruled that constitutional protection applies to pro-homosexual writing. The court reversed a lower court ruling that the gay magazine One violated obscenity laws. These are just a couple of the Supreme Court decisions, but I just wrote these ones, but there are a couple more. Some of the executive orders. On the first day of the 47th President's Commission in office, they have signed numerous executive orders that could affect the LGBTQ plus community, and furthermore, it is also important to consider the fact that executive laws are not 100% plausible and are not allowed to overrule the U.S. Constitution or any other federal regulations. The president does not have power over these and will be difficult, if not possible, to set these orders the president desires. So the first one I wrote down is the anti-transgender executive order. Is an order that strives to end any true or legal rights and approval of non-binary and transgender people under the national law, and enable discrimination against the entire LGBTQ community associated with medical management, housing, schooling, job sites, and others. The authors of Project 2025 are viewing and stating transgender people of more of an ideology rather than a real human being. These executive orders and desires oversteps the years of legislative and disobeys what we currently have by the U.S. Constitution. Not only does this affect transgender people, but also those under the LGBTQ plus group. This executive order would proceed with authority that there are only two genders, that being male and female, and deny the acceptance of transgender people and disbelieve that transition from one gender to another is possible. Executive orders continued. Definition of sex. The executive orders address administration units for the intention of sex non-discrimination laws, that the term sex is given by birth as either female or male. Direction to defy Bostock. The executive orders administrative units to correct the mistake of Boston versus Clayton County implemented by the Supreme Court. If approved, this would allow federal agencies to decline to recognize inequity countered against the LGBTQ plus community in the medical management, housing, schooling, and job sites. Refusal to respect transition. The allowance of others to deny the use of the correct pronouns a transgender and non-binary person goes by. To claim a right to use the bathrooms based on gender given by birth is protected by the Civil Rights Act of 1964. However, if this executive order is approved, it could lead to the choice without consequences to harass, dead name, and embarrass at their workplace. If also implemented, this could deny transgender people ability to use public restrooms such as in parks, offices, etc. So here is a video. It's a really quick short video about Trump's executive order on banning transgender rights in women's sports. So let's go ahead and take a look at that.
President Trump fulfilled a campaign promise today by signing a new President Trump fulfilled a campaign promise today by signing a new executive order banning transgender women from participating in women's sports. Alan Devlin spoke with members of the LGBTQ community, some of whom say their rights are under attack.
Donald Trump's latest executive order is not coming as a surprise to many, but it is leaving members of the LGBTQ community feeling uneasy this evening.
Today, I'm feeling just deeply disappointed.
Emotions of anger and disappointment echoing across the LGBTQ community Wednesday as the Trump administration stands on a promise made during the campaign.
In a few moments, I'll sign a historic executive order to ban men from competing in women's sports. It's about time.
Instead of addressing real issues facing Americans, Trump is once again targeting the transgender community simply to score political points.
The executive order, titled Keeping Men Out of Women's Sports, mandates that Title IX, the federal law banning sex discrimination in schools, be interpreted as prohibiting the participation of transgender girls and women in female sports. And according to a 2023 Gallup poll, 69% of Americans believe sports participation should be based on the gender assigned at birth.
Well, it's been very clear. The policy of this administration is that there are only two sexes, male and female. Pretty simple.
So that was just the first half of the video. You couldn't pass 120 seconds, but if you would like, I will link the video to the discussion. But one of the guests, or one of the reporters, what they stated, Trump is focusing on irrelevant ideas, and rather than real issues in the real world. So he has a point on that, and yeah, if you want to watch more, I will link it in the discussion. But to continue on, executive orders continued. The first one is association in national identity documents. What this means is the executive order directs the secretaries of states and homeland security to cease issuing federal identity documents, namely passport pieces, and global entry cards that conflict with the new definition of sex. What this means is that transgender non-binary people are no longer able to access new or renewed passports that reflect their gender identity. Regulatory safeguards protect validly issued passports from recession. To continue on, housing and shelters. Housing and Shelters directs HUD to appeal the equal access rule that protects LGBTQ plus people from discrimination in housing and has been in place since before the Trump administration. And to publicize a rule that prevents transgender women from being able to access domestic violence shelters. This would conflict with not only Bostock, but also other referral laws, and could create requirements for determining a person of sex for admission into emergency shelters that would directly impact individuals who do not conform with sex stereotypes, even if they are not transgender. So this goes on with confinement in prisons, such as direct agencies to issue regulations to force transgender women to be housed with men in prisons or detention centers in I believe it's Borea of prisons to see providing gender for main care of any kind of actions that place transgender women into unsafe incarceration placements or in conflict with the Prison Rape Elimination Act. Termination of DEI supporting programs in the workplace. Sorry, it cut off. This directive instructs the Office of Management and Budget with assistance from Attorney General and the Office of Personnel Management to NDEI, which mandates policies, programs, preferences, and activities throughout the federal government, including instructing Office of Management and Budget to terminate all equity-related grants and contracts. On the bright side, these are existing executive orders that still stand as of right now. Again, there are more, but I just wrote the most current ones. So, Executive Order 14020 of March 8, 2021. Establishment of the White House Gender Policy Council created White House Council to add gender equity, including equity for LGBTQ plus people. Executive Order 14021 of March 8, 2021, guaranteeing an educational environment free from discrimination on the basis of sex, including sexual orientation or gender identity, ensured the regulations and planting Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 reversed Trump-era changes that made it harder for survivors of sexual violence to be supported at schools and adding sexual orientation and gender identity as protected characteristics. Executive Order 14075 of June 15, 2022, advancing equality for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and intersex individuals, addressed access to medically necessary care for LGBTQ plus youth, discrimination, and barriers faced by LGBTQ plus children, parents, caretakers, and families in child welfare system. supports for LGBTQ plus children, and educational institution supports for LGBTQ plus elders, and responsible data collection. And lastly, Executive Order 14091 of February 16, 2023, further advancing racial equity, and support for underserved communities through the federal government, called for further actions to advance equity for underserved populations defined as inclusive of the LGBTQ plus people. So that is all I have for you today. I hope it wasn't boring. Hope it was very informative. I tried to add a couple pictures, make it a little bit interesting, but thank you guys for listening, and I can't wait to see the other Civil Liberties project. That is all for now. Thank you.